realism is the goal and it's only realistic to accept what we would do in those same situations, then the realistic Tarkov experience would be most of us in the fetal position in the corner in a puddle of our own piss, begging for mercy. The fact of the matter is that the vast majority of the time, when members of the Tarkov community defend certain aspects of the game as realistic or not, they're simply wrong on just about every level. I get told it's not realistic that people are able to shoot as quickly as I can click my mouse, either at all or with any reasonable accuracy. And I need to look no further than Instagram, where both myself and Clean have clear counterexamples of rapid semi-auto fire with amounts of control that people say is unrealistic when it's in Tarkov. I get told that the weapon handling mechanics in the game are realistic, that real soldiers shouldn't be able to stand up while reloading, that my frustrations with how clunky and unnaturally my character manipulates the weapon, unable to smoothly transition between different firing positions, from in and out of cover, between point firing and shouldering the rifle while shooting, all of that is unreasonable and unrealistic, just as long as we don't do anything to make the game more like Call of Duty. That game is unrealistic, it's unimmersive, it's not hardcore or tactical. Everybody's bullet spongy, the time to kill is ridiculous. It's an arcade shooter with unrealistic weapon handling, unrealistic movement, unrealistic time to kill. Whatever we do, we have to make sure that we become nothing like Call of Duty. I get told that the insane full auto recoil we experience with so many of the weapon builds in Tarkov is realistic recoil. And then I look at videos from Brownells with our very own Jesse Kazam, having no trouble controlling even shorter form factor rifles fully auto. Or literally any other video on YouTube of pretty much every weapon in the game being fired with infinitely more control than we see in the game.
Oh yeah.
Just as long as it's not like Call of Duty, right? I get told that the insane physical and visual recoil from shotguns is realistic, and then see clips like this, where even the GoPro that's loosely strapped to this guy's head, floppily bouncing back and forth significantly more than his head is, shows far less recoil than we actually get in-game. Whatever you do, just make sure it's nothing like Call of Duty. I get told that it's unrealistic to expect helmets and armor to be able to block certain bullets in certain situations, and then I see footage of a Marine's helmet eating a sniper bullet in Afghanistan, or these two guys demonstrating the effectiveness of body armor as well as the physics of getting shot, standing on one leg and taking a .308 round from an FAL point blank to his plate as if nothing happened.
There it is. Really didn't feel like much less than a punch.
I get told it's realistic that after a short amount of time jogging or crouching and standing up a couple of times, that my PMC would be completely unable to reposition to safety, especially if they sustain injuries from gunshots. Now, even after running for less than 30 seconds with an empty backpack, some light body armor, and a rifle, my PMC should be completely out of stamina. So if he happens to be shot at and even hit, it makes perfect sense that he would be entirely unable to move to cover, that he would be immobilized and should stand in place while sustaining fire to regain his stamina so he can reposition to better cover. Then I see footage of what many real soldiers are actually capable of, running 12 miles straight in the desert heat with more than 50 pounds in their backpacks without stopping to stand in place once, only taking short breaks to slow down to a brisk walking pace while regaining their stamina before they get right back to running. When I think about tactical, intense, hardcore combat situations, I don't imagine myself as someone who's going to let being a little winded or a couple minor injuries keep me from getting my ass to cover. I don't imagine a little bit of running is going to cause my PMC to just give up and let himself die. What I do imagine is a lot more like this guy, Chuck Ritter, an actual real-life Giga Chad that does what he has to do to not only keep himself alive, but to save someone else's life. It doesn't matter how much he'd been running that day, how many times he needed to crouch behind cover, how thirsty or hungry he was, how much gear he was carrying on his back, or how many rounds from a PKM machine gun he took to his body. He did what he had to do to get the job done.
This dude, he's not that injured. He's got his fingers blown off, and he's got a through and through to the leg. But he's just laying there. He was scared. Later he said he thought he was dead. Dragging this dude, and all of a sudden the machine gun opens up from where I thought we killed him onto the platoon leader. So I transitioned over to where I'm pretty sure this PKM gunner is. I can't see him. I start unloading on where I think he's at. He transitions to me, strikes me on the right leg. I was on a knee. And knocked that knee back. It felt like a sledgehammer. So I move forward. My whole body's like in a Superman position. The next round comes in and hits my upper back right here on the shoulder blade. Goes to the brachial nerve complex and the brachial artery and lodges in my lower back. And then a third round like nicked my butt.
Alpha, we are taking effective fire.
I was pissed. What was going through my head was like, I'm gonna kill this dude. At this point in time, I didn't feel a whole lot of pain.
Is Chuck good?
It felt like I got hit with a sledgehammer in the leg, and it definitely felt like somebody hit me with a sledgehammer in the back. I was like, okay, this isn't good. Let's get this dude out of here.
Zulu, you good? I'm hit. Hey, Zulu's hit.
I came around the corner, and then that's when the pain set in, and that wound redefined my definition of pain.
Where at, Chuck? Where at? On my back. Zulu's hit.
Please, Tarkov community, I beg you, stop pretending you know what's realistic and what's not. You've simply proven that you do not. Even if you did know what was realistic and what wasn't, stop arguing that realism is the goal of the game. There are many things that belong in the game that are realistic and many things that belong in the game that aren't. It's a game. In real life, you don't have a HUD display that pops up telling you where and to what extent you have injuries. You feel the bullet wounds and you can feel the blood. In this case, we all accept that there needs to be some abstraction of the real-life experiences into video game mechanics. At this point, you simply have to recognize that your arbitrary preferences about what things should be abstracted and what things shouldn't is not necessarily the right answer. And we also need to be very careful about how we go about addressing issues that we may feel like don't necessarily fit in the game, because in almost every case historically where we've attempted to do so, we've not actually fixed any problems, and instead made the experience in normal situations under reasonable circumstances cumbersome, annoying, or next to impossible, and all of it in the name of realism. Is it really worth it?
What the hell is wrong with you?
Now, some people argue that I'm upset because of skill issues, that my aim and reaction times just aren't what they used to be compared to all these new young kids playing the game. I can't keep up with this newer fast-paced meta. Well, I hate to break it to you, but I might be old, but I'm not dead yet. I'd be perfectly fine with much faster-paced, zero recoil jumping all over the place combat. In fact, I think I'd do quite well, but that assumes the game has proper movement and weapon handling to account for it. Otherwise, what's the point? Now, not only does the game not have that super fast-paced, hyper-precision movement in combat at the moment, but it isn't exactly what Nikita wants for the game, and I respect that. Nikita has said many times that what we see in the Raid series they created is an accurate representation of the experience he wants for players. This is the core foundational premise of my entire argument. Any of us can point out all kinds of things in the Raid series that are unrealistic or might not ever happen in real life, but that simply doesn't matter. It's fiction, just like Tarkov is a video game. The aim is not to simulate real life one for one. The aim is to immerse watchers or players in a specific experience, one that's dark, punishing, unforgiving, hardcore, and based on contemporary modern-day combat. When I watch the Raid series, none of it reminds me of the gameplay today, but so much of it brings me back to the Tarkov of old. So many scenes actually feel like they were inspired by many of my most epic, memorable moments. Watching the combat from the Raid series, we see PMCs moving quickly and quietly, partially crouched, guns held up at the ready. We see them moving through complex environments, taking advantage of these environments by stopping to crouch behind cover, to survey their surroundings. We don't see them tired, struggling to move because of stamina or because they're out of breath or their arms are shaky. Can you imagine if one of these guys had to stop, lower their gun, and stand there to catch their breath? They're all able to move confidently and covertly, making use of the situation to take advantage of the element of surprise. Back in the day, we actually had the ability to ready our guns and move covertly. Every movement of our gun or footstep we made wasn't telegraphing our position to everybody on the map. This allowed for a completely different playstyle that's effectively impossible today, rewarding those who adopted a more careful, slow, tactical approach, even if they were significantly undergeared. We don't see them stopping when they get shot at. We don't see them struggling to get on their feet to run to cover when they hear one of their comrades yell grenade. They have mobility, and as such, they have survivability. When they're caught in bad positions, they get on their feet and they run as fast as they can to cover, jumping, diving, sliding, doing whatever it takes to get to safety. For a stupid and irrational hatred for one game or another that people think aren't hardcore or not realistic enough to play, things like sliding or diving are seen as arcade-like, rather than just fucking surviving. Back in the day, this kind of mobility was actually possible.
You mother!
Fucking asshole. When firing their weapons, we don't see them struggling to control them. In the midst of the chaos of combat, we see them blind firing down hallways and over ledges, trying to expose as little as they can to enemy fire. When they know where the enemy is, sometimes they choose to quickly peek, lean, aim, and fire. And they're able to do this fluidly, quickly, and with precision, because if they don't, they'll die. With the addition of inertia and other balancing changes, some of the most immersive mechanics like sidestepping and leaning that used to be invaluable tools in combat have been effectively nerfed into the ground. They're simply far too slow and cumbersome to be as useful as they once were. Similarly, one of the most immersive and unique mechanics Tarkov has always had is the blind fire mechanic, reproducing exactly the kind of experience I was just talking about from the Raid series. Now, back in the day, we used to be able to move while blind firing, as well as blind fire while we were prone, both of which were crucial in making this mechanic actually useful in combat, but we can no longer do either, and as such, one of the best features Tarkov ever had is effectively now dead.
I'm done. Enemy killed.
When they're wounded, we don't see them giving up, accepting their fate. We see them fighting for every inch, giving it everything they have to survive. We see they're able to competently handle their weapons, even with one hand, because they're either multitasking or because they've sustained injuries. Sometimes they get fucked up. They get their bells rung, their ears ringing, vision blurred, but they survive. They get their shit together, and they continue the fight. Now, interestingly enough, the old medical system, before we had healing animations, in a way acted as a primitive form of the adrenaline feature that I and a few others have been advocating they include in the game for a long time now. It actually makes a lot more sense that, at least initially, the adrenaline might completely numb the pain of your injuries, and also give you a burst of energy, allowing you to get to safety. It used to be the case that armor was actually able to keep you alive significantly longer than it does today. Not only that, but it didn't completely destroy your mobility. Having effective armor and helmets that soaked up a decent amount of damage to the vital zones of the body was a complete game changer. Now, people criticize this era, saying that people were far too bullet spongy, but you have to recognize that with the current ballistics and health systems, the alternative is damn near an identical time to kill between no armor and all 6 classes of armor. So what's the point of having all of the variation in material and armor class if none of it has any appreciable impact on your survival? It just doesn't make any sense. In all of the following clips, I'm wearing Class 4 or Class 5 or Class 6 armor. Hundreds of thousands of rubles worth of gear. You tell me if you think this gear consistently performing, as you're going to see, is actually going to motivate people to invest in the gear and use it rather than just go naked and take a Mosin in with them. This is... okay. I mean, there's no way I survived this spawn. Now, the benefits of having armor that actually works, coupled with giving your PMC the ability to actually control their weapon and their bodies reasonably under fire, results in much more chaotic and intense situations where your success is based on skill, not RNG or other factors outside of your control. So many elements of Tarkov combat are awesome and add to that chaos. But right now, they're all stacked on top of one another and turned up to 11. So every single fight feels like a complete clusterfuck. In so many of these situations, it doesn't feel good to lose, and it even doesn't feel good to win.